Hello, infidels and heathens. I'm Laurie, Gaylor, and welcome to Freethought Radio.
And I'm Dan Barker, your friendly neighborhood atheist.
Freethought Radio is the weekly production of the Freedom From Religion Foundation. We are a non-profit group, and I'll spell that P-R-O-P-H-E-T, as well as a non-profit financially. And we have been working diligently since 1978 as a national group to protect that Jeffersonian wall of separation between church and state, and to represent the views of those of us, the 15% of the U.S. population that is non-religious. Later in the program, we have a fun guest, a high school junior from Ohio, who got in trouble when his school invited kids to dress up for the theme of Fiction Character Day, and he dressed up like Jesus.
His name is Sawyer Frey. He's very smart. He's an enterprising young man. He's been named the Freedom From Religion Foundation's Catherine Farringer Memorial Student Activist Awardee, and he will be receiving a $1,000 cash scholarship. We'll hear from him in a few minutes.
Yeah, so Brian Tirani is our producer and engineer. Brian, you were telling us a funny story.
Yeah, I took a road trip last weekend to go up and see my sister's family up in the Twin Cities area. And the trip from Madison to Minneapolis, pretty much one route to get across the river into Wisconsin, into Minnesota. On 94 West, there's this really big billboard on the left-hand side of the road that's on the left-hand side of the billboard, there's that famous iconograph of the chimpanzee evolving into the human being, and there's a circle around it in slash, anti-evolution image. And then on the other side of the billboard, it said, "In the beginning, God created ... And obviously some religious group arranged to have it up there, whether they paid for it or not, who knows. But I thought about your billboards immediately when I saw it, because
yeah, we have another place to put them up, huh?
Exactly. It's another one to target, because it was a nice sunny day, and there was this great billboard. But the funny thing was that as I'm driving along the interstate and seeing this billboard, this song is what I'm listening to on the radio, and it just seemed, I don't know, just so impossibly impossible that I don't know, it couldn't be recreated. This is what I was listening to.
Science is real. From the Big Bang to DNA. Science is real. From evolution to the Milky Way.
Right there, from evolution to the Milky Way.
Now, who are we listening to?
So this is a great little band, well, actually a pretty big band. They Might Be Giants. They've been around for a long time, but they've had a lot of success in rock, and they've branched out and done a bunch of children's albums, and this is off of one of their kids' albums.
Oh, well, that's a public service.
Well,
yeah.
Maybe we should play the whole song on one of the shows.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Sounds
And
like...
if you want to look it up on YouTube, there's a great video that goes along with it that's
Science
great for
is
kids.
real.
Science is
It
real.
sure is. Well, thank you. And we have some news, not as funny as that. We have an update on FFRF's New Hampshire Challenge of Under God and the Pledge of Allegiance. But before we get to that, let's talk about Freethought in Mexico. You just came back from Mexico City, right, Dan?
I did. I just got back this week from the first atheist conference in Mexico. And I want to say hi to my new friends down there. Saludos a mis nuevos amigos mexicanos ateos del todo el país, especialmente en DF. And I know some of them down there actually listen to our radio show regularly, religiously. A professor of physics, Arturo, listens all the time. So hello, Arturo. And then, of course, Gerardo Romero, who we talked to last week, nicknamed Ramas, is one of the organizers. The president, La Presidente, her name is Diana Sanchez. And then also Antonio Lemus, and then a guy whose nickname is Link. So I want to say hi to all of them. We had a great time. There was more than 100 people there. There's talks about science, about philosophy, about state-church separation.
And what did you learn about the growing population of freethinkers in Mexico?
Well, freethinkers, atheists and agnostics, are growing faster than the number of Catholics. They're still a small minority, but they've had marches and presentations, and the Catholic Church seems to be shrinking. Similar to what's happening in this country, free thought and non-religion seems to be taking off south of the border. So that's something to be proud of. And these hard-working organizers down there really deserve an awful lot of credit for keeping free thought and reason and science alive. So they're going to keep doing it every year. So when I was gone, let's talk about...
Just one other brief announcement before we talk about the Pledge of Allegiance. when you were gone, there was some publicity. We put up some more bus signs. Our first bus signs in Ohio, working with a secular student alliance group, Free Thinkers Club, who came to us and said that they wanted to see bus signs on their campus routes. And so they chose the bus signs. They chose Imagine No Religion, Sleepin' on Sundays, the United States is not founded on the Christian nation, and there's one other message that they like. And then there are 20 interior, and behind is that at Kent State University, they happen to have they were endowed with Katharine Hepburn's costumes, and so they have a big museum of her costumes and about her. And so they wanted one of the interior signs that says Katharine Hepburn's message as an atheist actress, that we should be kind to each other. We can't know anything about the other in an afterlife. That's all we have. And they were going to censor it, but I put our staff attorney, Rebecca Market, on the phone, and then they relented on that. So there was a great big color story, I think on the front page, and there's 4 huge pictures in the Akron Beacon Journal, and we're getting some nice reaction, and we were really pleased to work with these very enterprising college students.
So Ohioans are learning that they're not all Christians in that state. Also, when I was gone, some news came down about one of our lawsuits over the Pledge of Allegiance, and it's a setback. But Annie Laurie, you know more about this. Explain it to us.
Yeah, well, a week ago Friday, the United States Court of Appeals for the First Circuit, and that was we're talking about New England, issued a ruling against FFRF's challenge of a New Hampshire statute requiring daily classroom recitation of the godly Pledge of Allegiance. And regular listeners and freethinkers tend to know that the Pledge of Allegiance was first composed in 1892. There was no under God in it. It was said by generations of school children like that until 1954, when the Knights of Columbus and the family and other religious lobbies got under God inserted into the Pledge of Allegiance, and they tampered with it. And so Mike Newdow, who we've had on the program, who's an emergency room doctor who on the side is a constitutional scholar, has been taking lawsuits around the country challenging things like this. And when he had a loss in California, he said, let's go other places. So we have a family in New Hampshire, FFRF members with children in the schools, and in 2002, after 9/11, they passed a law requiring daily recitation of the Pledge of Allegiance. And although the law says that it has to be voluntary, and there is a Supreme Court decision saying that, so there's no way they could have got around that, they said that pupils who don't participate are required to respect the rights of those pupils electing to participate. They don't say it the other way around. And what Mike Newdow and our plaintiffs argue is that this subjects non-theistic children to peer pressure, ostracism, stigmatism, that they have to somehow be different.
But isn't it just a tiny minority of people in New Hampshire?
Well, and that's a leading question. Today, New Hampshire is the second least religious state in the country, at a whopping 29% of adults in New Hampshire choosing non-religious, according to this very definitive American Religious Identification
So almost
Survey.
a third, almost 1 out of 3
A
people.
third of the state is being adversely affected by this law. Their children are being told, your parents are wrong, you're wrong, there is a God, and God is tied to patriotism. And unfortunately, the federal judge didn't agree with us. That happened to be Stephen McAuliffe, who's the husband, the widower of
Krista
McAuliffe, who died in the space shuttle disaster. Just kind of a piece of trivia for you. And then it went up to the appeals court, and it was a 3-0 decision against us. And we're deciding whether to go into state court, whether to appeal, whether to ask for en banc, because Mike Newdow does not give up. And
What
you
was
have to
their
give him
reasoning?
a lot of credit.
What was the court's reasoning?
Oh gosh, they said that they said that there'd be many reasons why kids might not participate. They said, for example, that they might have a political disagreement with reciting the pledge or a desire to be different. Well, that might be true at the secondary level, but it is not true of a kindergartner or a third grader. It's farcical to argue that. And they also said that they compared the Pledge of Allegiance to a display on city property for the holidays that has a nativity display surrounded by secular objects, which has been approved by the court in the Lynch decision
Wow.
in the 70s. So they said that Okay, so you have the words under God, and God is religious. They admitted to that. Well, they said it's surrounded by a secular patriotic pledge. And to me, that is dishonest reasoning, because school children are always protected more carefully. There's more scrutiny of any law that coerces school children. And besides which, you cannot say that putting under God in a pledge makes it non-religious. So we would like to do something. We will appeal or do something with it. But
should we play the original pledge?
Yeah. So let's prove that God never used to be in the Pledge of Allegiance. What do you have for us?
This is from 1939. The highest constitutional scholar in the country will be reciting for us the original Pledge of Allegiance. And listen carefully to see if you hear the words under God in this 1939 broadcast.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, there you have it. Porky Pig was secular.
They should play that to the kids and have the kids stand up and pledge allegiance to Porky Pig.
And then we'll wrap up the discussion about this appeals court decision. There was one other main point that the appeals court made that I thought was very bogus, which is that they said that the public schools are not obliged to shield individual students from ideas which potentially are religiously offensive. For example, I think they'd be arguing that if you teach evolution in the science room, maybe that offends a creationist, but that's okay. Or if parents are offended for religious reasons that they have sex education and the kids have to opt out, that's okay. You cannot compare a daily recitation of a pledge to that kind of actual scientific or academic instruction, because what our First Amendment says is you do have to shield students from religion fostered by government in a public school. Mm-hmm. That's what the First Amendment requires.
And that argument that they're making makes it look like the school is intending then to promote a religious message that might offend some students.
And the message is tying piety to patriotism, and that's making political outsiders of the non-religious and turning them into second-class citizens. And it's wrong. Our country needs to restore the Pledge of Allegiance and go back to the good old days when we had a secular pledge only.
So we'll stay tuned. We're going to decide. We're talking with Mike Nudo. What is Mike saying we're going to do?
Well, we are cogitating about it. We are making a joint decision, but we have a lot of options. So I'm Laurie Gaylor with Dan Barker for Freethought Radio.